This is the story about the Israelites' dramatic escape from the slavery in Egypt and their journey to their promised land from God. And it is called Journey to the Promised Land. The story is found in Exodus, chapters 13 through 16 and 19 through 40, and Numbers chapters 13 and 14. It is a long story. But it is one that is very important to the Israelites' history and how we kind of got to where we are. So remember, this is just an extra story if you would like to listen to it. It is not a required assignment. But if you would like to listen to it, then stay tuned. Miles and miles of desert lay before the Israelites. They gazed out at the hot sand and burning rock. "Which way do we go?" they asked Moses. "God will show us," Moses replied. Just then God placed a thick cloud in front of them. The cloud moved forward, and the children of Israel followed. At night, God went ahead of them in the shape of a flaming fire. Back in Egypt, Pharaoh was pacing the floor of the palace. Once again, he had changed his mind. "I should not have let those Israelites go," he said to his officials. "Now who will make our bricks? Who will build our buildings and our temples?" So he gathered his army, and away they rode in their best chariots, pulled by their fastest horses. When the Israelites saw the chariots coming up behind them, they cried out in alarm. But Moses said, "Don't be afraid. Be brave, and the Lord will fight for you." As Moses spoke, a dark cloud formed between the Israelites and the Egyptian army. The cloud made it hard for Pharaoh's men to see, but the Israelites were still in daylight. The Israelites stopped at the edge of the Red Sea. Then God told Moses what to do. "Come," Moses cried. "God will keep you safe." He lifted his walking stick high in the air and stretched his arm out toward the sea. A strong wind blew and caused the water to split apart. To their astonishment, the people saw a dry path form between two towering walls of water. Moses and Aaron stepped onto the path. The frightened people found courage in their leaders. Slowly, they entered the roaring sea, coaxing their animals along. Pharaoh's army was right behind them. The Israelites could hear the chariots getting closer and closer. Moses and Aaron urged the people on. Finally, everyone was safely on land. God told Moses to lift his stick again and point it toward the sea. Immediately, the two walls of water collapsed with a tremendous crash. The whole Egyptian army was swept away. The Israelites thanked God for using his mighty powers to save them. Moses' sister, Miriam, and the other women took out their tambourines and began to dance. Miriam gave thanks with a song. "Sing praises to the Lord for his great victory. He has thrown the horses and their riders into the sea." Gifts from above. The joy and relief didn't last long. Day after day, the Israelites trudged through the desert. They started to complain to Moses and Aaron. "We wish the Lord had left us to die in Egypt. There's no food here. We're going to starve." But Moses told them, "The Lord will provide all the meat and bread we need." That evening, small birds fell from the sky, sent by God to feed the hungry people. Dew formed on the ground overnight, and in the morning, the floor of the desert was covered with large flakes that looked like frost. "What is it?" the people asked Moses. "This is the bread that the Lord has given you to eat," he told them. "It will appear every morning so that everyone will have enough for the day." The people gathered up the white flakes, which tasted as sweet as wafers made with honey. The Israelites called it manna. The 10 Commandments. 2 months after leaving Egypt, the Israelites came to Mount Sinai, the place where God had spoken to Moses twice before. They camped there quietly for 2 days. On the third morning, they were awakened by cracks of thunder and blinding bolts of lightning. The sound of trumpets echoed in the desert, and smoke covered Mount Sinai. "What is it?" the people cried, terrified. "Moses, what is happening?" "God has come down from the heavens," he answered. Then the Lord called down to Moses, "Come up on the mountain, Moses. I will give you the laws my people must obey." Moses picked up his walking stick. "Stay here and watch over the people," he told Aaron. Then he walked into the smoky cloud and disappeared. Moses stayed on the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights, listening to the laws of God. All that time the mountain trembled and flashed with the glory of the Lord. The people in the desert below grew impatient. "Moses has been gone for too long," they said to Aaron. "Who knows if he is ever coming back? We need someone to lead us through the desert. We need a God we can see." Aaron saw how angry the people were becoming, and he became afraid. "Gather your gold jewelry," he said. "Bring it to me." The people took their gold trinkets to Aaron, bracelets, necklaces, rings, earrings. He built a fire and melted the jewelry. Then he formed the metal into a small golden calf. The people shouted with joy. They put the calf on an altar and began to worship it, dancing around it and singing wildly. Soon after, Moses came down from the mountain. He was carrying 2 stone tablets written by the hand of God. These were the most important of God's commandments. When he saw what the people were doing, he dropped the tablets on the ground. Then he picked up each one and smashed it into 100 pieces, crying out in fury, "You have insulted the Lord! You don't deserve to receive his laws." He turned to his brother Aaron. "And you, Aaron? How could you allow this to happen?" Moses melted the golden calf and ground it into powder. The next day he told the people, "You have done a terrible thing. I will go back to the Lord and apologize on your behalf." God listened to Moses and said, "Tell the people to show they are ashamed of what they did. Then I will decide what to do with them." And so the people went into mourning and prayed that God would forgive them. God heard their prayers. He told Moses to cut 2 more stone tablets and bring them up to the top of Mount Sinai. Moses was there for another 40 days and 40 nights. Again, God wrote the laws on the tablets. Later, the people made a special chest called the Ark of the Covenant to hold the tablets. They carried the ark with them wherever they went. A new leader. On the 20th day of the 2nd month of that year, the people left Mount Sinai and began the long walk to the Promised Land, the land of Canaan, that God had shown Abraham hundreds of years earlier. This was the land that God had chosen for his people, the Israelites. When they got close to Canaan, Moses sent 12 spies ahead to explore the land of Canaan. "Find out how many people live there and how strong they are," Moses told the men. "See if the land is good for growing crops. Now the grapes should be ripe. Try to bring some back." 40 days later, the men returned. They had brought back figs and pomegranates as well as grapes. But the men had bad news. "The people there are strong. Some are so big that we felt like grasshoppers, and their cities are surrounded by tall walls. We could never defeat them." But 2 of the leaders, Caleb and Joshua, didn't agree. "The land is ours by right," Caleb said. "I know we can take it back." Joshua held up his sword. "The Lord is on our side. Those people won't have a chance against us." But the people were afraid. Once again they lost their faith that God would help them. So the Lord told Moses, "Only Caleb and Joshua have shown faith in me, so only they will see the Promised Land. All the rest must wait for 40 years, 1 for each day the land was explored." The Israelites were left to wander from place to place. Moses stayed with the Israelites and gave them the word of God. At last they settled in the country of Moab. Moses was now an old man. He knew he would not be able to lead the Israelites into the Promised Land. So Moses called for Joshua. He placed his hands on Joshua and said, "Be strong and brave, for you must take the people across the Jordan River into Canaan. God will be with you, and you will win the land that has been promised to us." Later, Moses climbed to the top of a mountain. From there, he could see the Promised Land, the land of milk and honey, a land that he would never enter. At the age of 120, Moses died. He had spent most of his life serving God and will forever be remembered as the man who led his people out of slavery to the land God had promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So the little think about it for this story says, why do you think God chose Moses to lead the people out of Egypt? What qualities should you have to be a good leader? So what do you think? If you want to leave your comments below, you are free to. If not, think about it. Why do you think he chose Moses? And what do you think you need to have to be a good leader?